Hey everyone, welcome to the 17th episode of Marketing Minutes. I am Eva Janata. I'm the founder of Simply Put Strategies, where I work with women CEOs and business leaders to create data-driven thought leadership and marketing strategies so that they can increase their power and influence, make a social impact, and help achieve gender parity in business and technology. Thank you so much for joining us. Before I introduce my guest, I want to just ask that you please join the Marketing Minutes email list. You will get short, I swear, updates about interviews and marketing tips, and the link to do that is a bit.ly link right in the text of this video. So, welcome to Melanie Padgett Powers. Hi, Mel.
Hello.
So Melanie is the owner of Mel Edits in Washington, D.C. She is a writer, a managing editor, and a copy editor, a proofreader, and a self-identified word nerd, primarily working for membership associations where she worked for 13 years before launching Mel Edits 5 years ago. So Melanie writes mostly in the healthcare space, but also writes about small business, meeting planning, and pets. And finally, she loves writing profiles for alumni magazines. That's cool. Melanie's clients have included GE Healthcare, the American Public Health Association, Georgetown Business Magazine, and Bethesda Magazine. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, I really am too. And we were chatting right before we went live about why I'm excited, and we're going to dive right into that from the outset. And it is going to be the first question I ask you, which is about obviously marketing. I want to hear from you what has actually worked well for you. And when it comes to digital marketing your business, there's so much free advice, and a lot of it is hard to determine if it's the right fit for you at the stage of your business or if it's going to really pay off the way you desire. And so I want to hear from you with your experience building Mel Edits over the past 5 years. What marketing tactic has worked really well to build your company? Or in other words, what has brought you better results than anything else?
Yeah, the short answer is Twitter.
Yay! I knew you were going to say that, and I'm so excited.
The end. I will sit here and evangelize about Twitter. I want to start a little bit with a philosophy that I figured out fairly early on, and that was that I was one of those people that always said I hated networking, and networking is an aspect of marketing, and marketing feels salesy and phony and all of those things. Mm-hmm. And so I thought of networking as going to those happy hour cocktail receptions with all strangers, and you have to kind of burst into these little groups of people and sell yourself, and who wants to do that? So when I forced myself to go to some of those, and I went to some good ones and I went to some bad ones, I started to realize that as I talked about writing and editing and other, membership associations, reporting, journalism, Twitter, that I really enjoy talking about those things with other people because it was very natural. And it was, I was telling, I was being authentic and truthful, and this is just something I'm very passionate about. And so I started to realize that marketing and networking was really about connecting. And that
here.
Yes. And that mind shift really helped me realize that you can be authentic and non-salesy, and you can be an introvert. And it's just about connecting with people about things that you are good at and things that you enjoy. And so Twitter I had already been on Twitter. So I've been on Twitter for 9 years. And then I started my business 5 years ago. And it was just a natural for me. I think as a former reporter, that I think Twitter fits really well because I'm used to typing fast. I'm used to being succinct, especially when we were limited to fewer characters. Yeah. And I like connecting with a lot of people and asking questions and finding out about all kinds of different things in the world. And so I think Twitter is a natural fit for reporters, current and former journalists. And so it just worked really well for me from the beginning because I loved it. I was not forcing myself to do it. I was being strategic in some sense, but also I didn't have to remind myself to do it. I was on Twitter all the time. So there are things on Twitter specifically that have worked. I do create Twitter lists, And so I have public list of things like writers. I have a writer's list. I have an editor's list. That just helps remind me of all the people, the colleagues and the other freelancers that I meet. I have a list of content marketing people because I'm in that space as well. And I add a lot of people to those lists before and after I go to those various conferences to remind myself who I might want to meet, but then afterwards stay connected with the people that I did meet in person. I also have private lists, though, that, so being a little strategic, that I have lists that only I can see that are of potential clients or people that I want to connect with. And I look at those lists every now and then. I should probably look at them more often, but I look at those lists and think about how I can connect with those people in an authentic, organic way by responding to their tweets or retweeting them or retweeting them with comments, seeing who they're following. And just so I'm not just sending them a letter of introduction, or I'm not just marketing to them, or I'm not just, I don't want to say on Twitter, hey, do you want a writer? So I just try to keep track of those people and connect with them and remind myself to kind of see what they're up to.
So it sounds like so the mindset shift is critical when, a lot of people feel awkward or self-conscious or almost like they have uncomfortable with networking because of that ulterior motive, that idea that you have an agenda and your agenda is to get a client or make a sale or get an introduction. Yeah. And so the shift you talked about is critical, which is just think of it basically as making friends, as just talking the way you would to somebody at the dog park or somebody picking your kids up from school or someone at wherever. That takes some of the pressure off of it. And it sounds like you took that mindset shift and you just parlayed it to Twitter. So instead of you're just being friendly to people, and you have a strategy to it. You're being friendly to certain groups of people that you want to build relationships with. But it sounds like that is that, am I getting that right?
Oh yeah. And I say all the time that I think you can be a friendly, nice person in business and still be very strategic and tough and be successful in business. I'm a Midwesterner. I'm from Indiana. Yay, Indiana. Mm-hmm. We tend to be, I have that Midwestern friendliness, and I want to enjoy the people that I work with and enjoy, talking to them. And I think also on Twitter, I'm very open. And so, I share kind of the inside baseball things. There are a lot of pictures of me and my cats. But it's, it might be, they like to climb on me when I'm editing. So I might have a selfie of my cat and I while I'm doing proofreading for a magazine. So that's marketing, right? It's showing that, oh, she proofreads magazines, but it's just a fun picture of me and my cat. And those get a lot more attention than almost anything that I tweet are my cat, mentions of my cat, and I talk about, I might take pictures of my slippers that I'm wearing, or, that I'm wearing, these huge headphones today. So that's the kind of stuff. Being fun on there and showing my real personality goes a long way on Twitter, I think, as well.
That makes a lot of sense. The idea of being comfortable enough to show your personality quirks, show your environment where you're physically working, and that can have a dual purpose of both showing your work and showing your brand, the fact that you're a cat person or the fact that you work in your slippers. I'm wondering, I want to go back to something you mentioned before, which was Twitter lists, which I love because they're such a great organizational tool, making them for events, like you said, to mm-hmm. keep track of people or by different categories or for prospects. I typically use private lists for some of the reasons you mentioned, to be a little more strategic. You mentioned using public lists too. Have you found public lists to be a helpful marketing tool or a networking tool?
I think probably not so much marketing. I think they've been helpful networking at times, as again, right before or after a conference. I've gone to editing conferences where people have shared their public lists before the conference, and then I'll look at their list and say, oh, these people are going to be there. I haven't met them yet, or I haven't connected with them on Twitter, and I'll connect with them on Twitter. And then we talk about, oh, I want to meet you at the conference. And So it's more kind of finding your people and your network of, for me, that's other editors, other writers. So it's the connecting. And, that the other thing too is Twitter is not always that direct, tangible marketing that like do you want a health writer? Okay, hire me. It's a lot of times I get work from other editors who might get a query and they're not the right editor, or they have too much work on their hands. And so they will remember the other editors that they've met through Twitter or at conferences and throw work our way. And I do the same thing. Yeah. If I'm not great for a project, or I am too busy, or for whatever reason, I really want to help out that potential client or current client and other freelancers and connect them.
Yeah, that's a great example of how to use lists and how to just you can use similar strategies in your email marketing tool or on LinkedIn, but Twitter in particular has these lists, and those can be really powerful for, like your referral network. I wanted to ask so you mentioned that Twitter is a good tool for not necessarily direct marketing, but like that sort of long-term lifestyle marketing of just building relationships and connecting with people and being visible and showing what you do. I'm wondering if you could speak to some of the other tactics available on Twitter, like searching by hashtags or Twitter chats, or even promoting your blog posts or webinars or specific, more like lead generation activities. Can you speak to how some of those have worked for you on Twitter?
Sure. So I'm very active in various tweet chats. Again, it's usually my network of, this is an editor chat or a writer chat or a freelance chat. But again, that's building your network. People will remember you, pass along business to you or referral to you, get a lot of ideas just about building your business, or how to find new clients. So they're very educational. I take part in a content marketing chat occasionally, and that also has potential clients on there. I do a lot of health writing, but that's not the only type of writing I do, but I do promote that because it's a particular niche. And I have so I'll use the hashtag health writer, which I don't see a lot out there. So I don't know how much people are searching it, but when they see my tweet, that, hopefully stands out. And I have had people that a couple of times, people I did not know at all, did not have any personal connection to, were not referred to me. They saw me on Twitter, saw that I was a health writer, went to my webpage, saw my health articles, and contacted me that way. And I got clients that way. So just about, promoting your work. And then I've done different things. I actually use a virtual assistant, and she creates some images in Canva, which is free. Very easy to use, that promote some of the blog posts that I write. And she's done it. I do something called hashtag write, WRITE, write advice. And I take quotes from various famous writers and novelists, and we make these cute images and share those. And that just, that's not promoting me, but that's just showing that I'm a writer. I'm interested in words. It's something that we do every week. So that it just, new and different ways of trying to show that I am a writer, I am an editor, I'm interested in talking about writing and language and words and dictionaries. And the more creative ways you can do that with images and GIFs and retweeting others instead of just always tweeting, your own words is
super important.
Helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple things that stand out to me from that. One, a reminder, when it comes to hashtag strategy, a lot of folks, when they think about using hashtags, they think about using the most popular kind of broad hashtags, when in reality, creating your own hashtag or using more niched or micro hashtags can make it much more likely that the kind of person you want to connect with will be able to find you. And, with hashtags being in that highlighted hyperlink color, they stand out a little more. And for something like, that'll make someone, if they're looking for a writer and they see health writer, that'll be an automatic connection in their brain for what you are and what you do and how you can help them.
Yeah, those large hashtags your tweets are just going to get lost. I do occasionally say hashtag freelance, but that's a million tweets. I'm not expecting someone to find me that way.
Right. That's a good point. And so it's just a reminder to think more strategically about the smaller hashtags, or I don't know if smaller is the right word, but not only those huge broad ones.
Right.
And then the other thing you mentioned is, you talked earlier about how you think Twitter is a really good fit for reporters and journalists and people who like pithy quotes and words and wordplay. But you made the point that you use these Canva images, which is a reminder that visuals are still really important on Twitter. It's this interesting relationship between, an eye-catching image plus appealing and compelling copy. So I'm just glad you mentioned that as a reminder that both are important on the platform.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, we're very, even, being a word nerd, visuals are very important to a lot of people. Photography still is what catches everyone's eye and makes people stop. And, having just a boring stock photo that is pulled in from an article isn't necessarily going to catch everyone's eye. Especially when I talk about like inside baseball stuff that I'm, talking about whatever's going on in my office today, I started using GIFs a lot because it shows my humor. And, it does catch people's attention, and it usually gets some sort of response because they're funny. So I learned that a lot of the content marketing people were doing GIFs a few years ago, and their GIF game was strong. And I was like, how do you do this? And how do you pull them in so quickly? And so I worked on that a little bit to be able to find GIFs quickly. And now Twitter makes it really easy because you can do it right in Twitter.
Yeah, GIFs are a lot of fun, and I overlooked them for years because I didn't feel confident in how to use them, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, they're fun. They're really eye-catching. It's a easy way to make a cultural reference. Like I have a GIF, a Seinfeld GIF that I use periodically that every time I use it, it makes me happy. And I can only imagine that the people who are seeing it also just get that like happy fire of like, oh yeah, Seinfeld.
Yeah. Yeah.
So thank you so much. That was really helpful. I want to switch now to asking the opposite question, which is there a marketing strategy or tactic that you've used that has really not worked well for you?
I think it goes back to what I thought networking was, those awkward happy hour, cocktail hour, where I go by myself and I don't know anyone there and they're all strangers. And I still try those occasionally, new groups, new meetups, new organizations that have chapter meetings locally. I still try them out to see maybe this group is a good fit. But I am very particular about those, and I don't force myself to go to those because I think it's such a crapshoot. You could show up at those and, for me, it could be, I'm in the DC area. It could be everybody in the room is a lawyer or a lobbyist. And it's like, well, you're not my audience. I don't have anything to talk about with you. You might be a very nice person, but there's no way we're really going to connect. So I just really have not gotten a lot of business from those kind of events. And I went to a lot of them in the beginning, and I just realized I was wasting my time, wasting my money, wasting my energy, making myself go to these. And so I would encourage people that sometimes I think people feel like they have to go, like those are the things that they have to go to. Try to find other in-person events that are not necessarily those all-encompassing happy hours.
I think that's great advice and such a relief to hear and important to be reminded of, especially those who are at the beginning of building their business, or maybe they're experiencing a pivot or a shift or some sort of up level, and they're kind of engaging in a new way now. And those events can be such a time suck. I know for me, what has been helpful is actually prioritizing events that have a cost to them, because that tends to sort of weed out is not.
No, you could say weed out.
Yeah, like that's what I mean. To kind of weed out people who
you're making a commitment.
You're making a commitment. They're more likely to be focused, so you can decipher like, is this going to have my kind of person or not? And it works on me as well. If I've paid for it, I'm much more likely to go. I feel committed, and the people in the room are committed, and it just tends to be a more quality group of people.
Right. Yeah. No, I absolutely agree.
So continuing to talk about marketing, you've shared some of the things that have worked really well for you on Twitter and then something that has not worked that well for you. Now I'm wondering, as a customer or client yourself, as a person who lives in the world and has to buy things, is there a particular brand or type of promotional campaign that has worked really well on you as a consumer? Like, what's your favorite commercial is another way of phrasing it.
Yeah. I had trouble with this, I think, trying to, come up with my favorite commercial. And especially now, I actually fast forward through all the commercials because everything's on my DVR, like so many of us, or we're not even watching TV, we're on Netflix or something else. But I think as a concept, I think I'm a complete sucker for Facebook ads. I think people are probably the people doing Facebook ads, like on a smaller scale or considering them, are thinking, do they work? Do I spend my money? Is it worth bothering? They work on me. I'm a complete sucker. I mean, Facebook is all knowing, right? It's Google and Facebook know everything about us.
Mm-hmm. And Amazon.
And Amazon, right? The big three. Mm-hmm. And Facebook knows that I like cats, and it knows that I like t-shirts with funny sayings on them. And it's like, and they send these ads and I try to scroll through them, but it's like, oh, that's only $25. I mean, what's $25? It's never anything super expensive. And I click through. And so I've bought a lot of things that I spotted through Facebook ads, and I've been happy with them. I'm not buying things that end up being junk or misrepresented, and I'm being introduced to new companies, smaller companies that I didn't know about.
Oh, great.
That I will actually, old school bookmark and, try to remember them when I'm buying gifts for people or just for my own pleasure. If I want to, restock my cute t-shirts, I might go back to that particular company. So I've bought quite a few things through the Facebook ads.
Do you find when you are on the receiving end of a Facebook ad, I've noticed, like, I'll go to a website for some reason, and then I'll immediately see their ad in my Facebook feed.
Yes.
And so the connection is obvious, and the Facebook ad becomes one touch point among many. I already went to their website. I already had some sort of reason to connect with this company. Mm-hmm. And then the Facebook ad is a further touch point. But you mentioned that you're also being introduced to new brands on Facebook. So it's the first introduction. Do you have any commentary on that? Like whether it's a first time see in Facebook or it's just kind of part of the customer journey and the brand building for you?
I get both. I think the first thing you were talking about, where I've already gone to the website, typically I've already gone to the website. I've planned on whether to buy it or not. I've made the purchase or not. And then when I see it on Facebook, like I'm over it. I've either already bought it or decide not to buy it. So I can see where that can be annoying for people. And I've heard people, friends say, oh, I just looked at this one thing for a gift for, my relative. And now it's popping up in my Facebook feed and it's not something that I care about. It was just a potential gift. So that does happen. But yeah, I do see a lot of new things on there that I end up buying and companies I never heard of. And I think it's, I probably searched for, a t-shirt with a funny cat on it, and then and then all kinds of funny t-shirts came up, and one caught my eye, and then I go to the website and I realize they have 1 million of them with funny things on them or pop culture references. And so I do like that aspect of it. So you get kind of both of them.
Has it ever worked for you? You mentioned that you've bought products that you're really happy with through a Facebook ad. How about something like a service? Have you purchased services, or have you signed up for a free webinar or a free download or some more of like a lead generation opportunity through Facebook?
I don't, not as much. I don't see that as much on Facebook. That's more if that tends to happen a lot if I follow a blog or I like a podcast. So if I go to a podcast website and then everybody has a newsletter. So I sign up a lot of times for the newsletters when I get the pop-ups, or at the, if I like a particular podcast and I see they have a newsletter, I definitely sign up for a lot of those newsletters.
Got it. Thank you. That's there's a lot of interesting content there about like how Facebook's ads work for you, how you engage with them. On a different note, or kind of going back, I thought of another question I have actually about Twitter before we move on to the final question of the interview, which is, I'm curious, how you kind of plan your Twitter time. Like, do you have a sort of a schedule that you use for like spending time on Twitter, making sure it's enough but not too much? Or do you employ your VA to do that? How do you manage your time when it comes to the network?
So I do use my virtual assistant because I found that I would do it very ad hoc, and then I would want to share important things, in a more strategic way. And it was taking a lot of time to curate that information and then to schedule it. Mm-hmm. So, and I would try to do that at the beginning of each week. And I was pretty successful because, again, I like Twitter, but it took a lot of time. And so what I do now is this is another way I use my list, and my virtual assistant looks through my list and particular hashtags that I like. And she polls every week a bunch of content that of people that I'm following and conversations I would be having anyway. And she sends it to me because I really still want it to be my voice and to be authentic. And so she actually sends me the list, and I go through, and sometimes I nix some links that just are not the message I want to send. And then I make comments. So that's for tweets and for Facebook posts. And so I will make the comments on, this is what I want to say to this retweet, or this is what I want to say to this link that we should share. And then I send it back to her, and she schedules it for the entire week. And then she also, So then the thing that she does too, that is very strategic, that would take a lot of my time, is she creates those Canva images. She remembers every week. We do a Throwback Thursday that links to an article on my website profile that I wrote. So we do a Throwback Thursday, and I make a little about what it was like to write that article. She remembers to do that every Thursday, which I might not remember, or I might be busy that week. And so things like that, the right advice that I talked about, I do a slew of those at one time. And then she lets me know, okay, we just ran through 12 weeks of these. We need some new quotes. What do you want to say? So she is very helpful in that sense of just kind of managing it, scheduling it, helping me remember to do the things that I've decided and committed to do every week.
Good. That's a great example of how to use an assistant or someone like me, a social media consultant or management service to, do the work that you don't actually need to do, which frees you up to really focus on the personality part, the comments, the engagement that comes from your voice.
Yeah. And I should add, you said, you're a social media consultant. My virtual assistant used to work at digital and social media agencies. So she's more than just an assistant. She has really taught me, even though I love Twitter and I know a lot about Twitter, she's introduced me to new programs and new ways of looking at things so she is also a social media consultant, which I think is an important point for what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I'm really glad you added that because not all VAs are going to have that that background or that ability, that skill set to do what she's doing for you. Yeah. So, Melanie, the final question I wanted to ask you before we close is if you could share the biggest challenge you've faced in marketing your business, because marketing can feel very vulnerable. It can feel risky. Is there something that stands out to you as like a hurdle that you overcame or you're overcoming? What has been challenging when it comes to marketing?
I think it's the opposite of one specific thing. It's that I want to do all of the things. And I think freelancers face this a lot in whatever area we're talking about. I go to a lot of conferences or I go to networking events or talking with people like you, and I get all of these ideas and I think, oh, I need to do that. And that would be fun. And that would be really helpful. And it gets really overwhelming. You want to do all of these things on Twitter, and then you think, oh, I should be on Instagram, and oh, I need to find people on LinkedIn. And what about, go speaking at this one conference or having a booth at this other event. And it can be really hard to step back and analyze things and decide what is the best area to focus on, what deserves your attention the most, and not try to be everything to everyone, not try to be on every social media platform, not try to spend money on every consultant out there. But that remains a challenge because I tend to get excited about the new and shiny.
I completely relate to that. And I've been trying to coach myself to just simplify and allow myself to get excited about things. And I'll write them down in like a long list. And then sometimes that's where they're going to live maybe forever, is on the list. And that's fine. And, because it is really easy to get that shiny object syndrome and to get excited, and entrepreneurs are idea people and, love to leverage everything and to make the most of everything. And that there's just not enough time. And so you have to give yourself some grace to not do all the things.
Right. Exactly.
So is there anything that you're promoting right now? Do you have anything hot off the presses? Are you looking for a certain kind of client, an event? Let me know like what's going on in your world that we can help you in.
Sure. Well, two things I'll just say quickly. So as far as my services, I'm a writer and an editor. I'm mostly in the membership association space, excuse me, mostly for healthcare associations. And I'm always looking for new associations to work with. I write a lot of, excuse me, feature magazine articles and blogs, online articles. I ghostwrite if they need ghostwritten blogs, but I really come from a journalism reporter background. So that's the kind of writing that I do. And then another thing that I'm just excited about that I'm trying to get off the ground, and maybe if I tell you, I'll commit to it, is that I've been talking for about a year that I'm going to launch my own podcast.
Wow.
And yeah. So it's not directly related to my services. So, and that's, I think, what's been, and it's a huge project. It's kind of a passion project. It feels very overwhelming. And just making the time to commit to something that is not instantly paying me is, what entrepreneurs all face, right?
Yes.
We do the work for the clients first, and then we're tired, and then we don't do our projects. But I want to do a podcast that helps other freelancers build successful businesses. So that is something I am planning on launching in 2019. So yeah, thank you.
Exciting.
I know, I'm very excited. I love podcasts. I've planned a lot of it. I just need to kind of get the logistics down. So if you want to know more about me, you can go to meledits.com. And please, if you're on Twitter, follow me on Twitter at meledits. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. All of that information is on my website, and you can certainly email me from my website as well.
Yes, and I threw all of your links, your website, and your social media networks down in the comments. So if anyone is not yet following Melanie, go do so now. It'll take not very many seconds. And before we say goodbye, Melanie, I did want to ask, for every episode of Marketing Minutes that I do, I now have podcasts on the brain, but for every Marketing Minutes episode, I donate $10 to an organization of my interviewee's choice. And you chose the Manna Food Center. And I wondered if you could share if you have a story about them or a personal connection, or why you chose that fantastic organization.
Sure. Well, yeah, first, thanks for doing that. I think that's a lovely idea. Manna Food. So I live in Montgomery County, Maryland. And as you know, we are a fairly wealthy county. We're based right outside Washington, D.C. And I think because we are a very diverse and wealthy county, people tend to need to be reminded or forget that, we do have families in need here as well. And Manna Food Center is this amazing organization. They are partially a food bank. I don't know if they'd use that phrase, but they distribute food, and they really focus on finding healthy and nutritious food to families in our area that need help. But they do a lot more than that. They advocate for families in need in our county, and they also do a lot of education to families. And so they're just this great organization that I discovered several years ago, and I try to support them whatever I can. And I'll just add quickly about food banks in general. We tend to, it's the holiday season. We tend to see all these food drives and remember to do donations at this time of year. But these organizations need money throughout the year. People tend to kind of forget about them a little bit in the summer. And the summer is when kids are not in school and they're not getting meals easily.
That's a great point.
In some areas. So just try to remember them throughout the year. And as fun as food drives can be, and donating, going grocery shopping for these organizations can be, cash is always better, I think. Well, I can't speak for them, but cash is better in most situations because they can buy exactly what they need for their families, and they can buy in bulk at a much cheaper rate than if we're just cleaning out our pantries and giving them whatever we want.
Those are both really good points that I hadn't considered. I'm so glad you shared that.
Sure. Yeah, I've just been learning as I go along and learning from Manna Food Center. They have a great newsletter that they still mail out, and it's very educational for the community as well.
Well, good. I'm so glad. I grew up in Montgomery County, so I'm really excited that you chose an organization local to the county. And yeah, that donation will be underway. And thank you so very much for your time today, Melanie. This was such a great conversation.
Yeah, this was so much fun. I really appreciate that you having me on.
Great. Well, I guess I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Wave goodbye.
Bye, Melanie.
Bye. Thanks so much.
Thank you all so much for tuning in. I saw some questions in the comments, which is fantastic, and I will make sure that I or Melanie respond to those. And I want to let you know that next week, I'm going to be interviewing Catherine Baxter of the Op-Ed Project for episode 18. So the Op-Ed Project is a really cool organization dedicated to bringing underrepresented voices, like those of women and people of color, into mainstream media through training folks to write powerful op-eds and do much, much more with their ability to write and disseminate their perspective and content. So if you're available next Friday, I'd love to see you here for that episode. And yeah, thanks again for tuning in. And remember, if you haven't yet to sign up for the Marketing Minutes email list, there's a link in the text above this video. And yeah, see you next week. Thanks.